Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week, we're gathering to celebrate the summer solstice with the continuation of our one-shot set in the Old Gods of Appalachia role-playing game by Money Cook Games. Hello and welcome. I'm Robin, your old GM of Appalachia, and joining me are...
Hi, I'm Adam, and I'll be playing Ed Eaton, a rebellious explorer who serves the green and a friend of the bride.
Hi there, I'm Drew, and I'll be playing Fielding Cladwell, a beholding speaker who cannot escape the darkness and is in the wrong damn seat.
I'm Dez, and I'll be playing Silas Greenaw, a himbo magic blacksmith who delivered the rings.
And my name is Nick. I will be playing Bascom B.B. Burton, a charming sage who knows Jack. And if you cross him, he'll shoot you with his BB gun. Pew pew.
That's where BB comes from.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, players. Now for the usual disclaimer. Old Gods of Appalachia is a horror anthology podcast run by Cam Collins and Steve Shell. This tabletop session will do its best to honor the source material, which is to say that we're going to be leaning into all the sumptuous folk and ecological horror that make Old Gods of Appalachia an incredible listening experience. So if you need a list of content warnings, you can find them in the episode notes. And if you're keen on figuring out how my ancestors and our players cope with the aftermath of the, let's say, unexpected outcome of the wedding, but maybe you can't remember the details of all that's happened, well, let's hear from Ed about it.
All right. I'm going to do this little recap in character, which my disclaimer is that I'm going to continue to attempt to do the accent that my grandparents spoke with. Last time showed that it drifts a lot because I'm very easily influenced by what other people sound like. But just know, doing my level best to do an accent that is part of my family history, but I'm not that good at, and hopefully it won't sound like I'm making fun. Here goes. Well, I arrived at the wedding around about the same time as BB and Silas and that fool Cladwell. Left my weapons by the gallows front door, so I'm civilized and polite. We were going in and around the same time. BB spotted a white dog none of the rest of us saw. Signed the guest book over some objections, what with me being uninvited and all. Leaf fell out. Silas picked it up, handed it over to me. I know what to do with it. Of course, while we were talking amongst ourselves, Silas went to deliver the rings and ended up having to listen to one of the servants, Amelia. So upset about her missing friend, Cassie. Silas resolved to help if he could, and returned while I was partaking in some friendly jobs between myself, BB, and that coxcomb Cladwell. We decided to pay our respects to the bride, then check the study for the tunnels Amelia had told Silas about, thinking they might be connected to Cassie's disappearance. BB was quiet but helpful, while Cladwell was, well, Cladwell. They went up to check on Meemaw. Something peculiar happened with Cladwell and something noisy. BB ended up with Meemaw's notebook, an object of peculiarities to be sure. But in the meantime, I got to check on Lizzie, the bride. She didn't seem overjoyed by the whole affair, but took comfort in my attendance and my support and accepted a token from me, lacquered red-tailed hawkskull. She asked me to sit at the ceremony where she could see me. I gave her my word, then met back up with BB and Cladwell back in the hallway. We headed down to the study and bantered with Paul Gallows while BB and I looked for signs of a secret passage. Think we found one, but Paul Gallows irresistibly herded us out to the ceremony. I sat where Lizzie asked, while Silas got put in Cladwell's seat, much to the Popinjay's dismay. The parties processed while Silas noted a knife he'd made on the altar. We also noted the presence, some of us, of a glaring young woman with red hair who seemed to vanish when Father Atticus got the ceremony rolling. Before long, though, it was interrupted by screaming and seizing as Father Atticus burst in slow motion, releasing swarms of screaming cicadas with increasingly human voices and ashen appearances. I rushed to see Lizzie as pandemonium broke out, and it's about as much as I can tell you. The rest we'll have to see.
And that's exactly where we're going to pick up. There's a veritable storm cloud of a swarm swirling over your heads. The wedding has erupted into chaos. Guests are scattering every which way, a lot of them sprinting for the manor. The wedding party has gathered around the husk formerly known as Father Atticus Gallows, gathering what they can to no avail.
I shout out to everyone, "Get inside now!"
If I can, I'm going to, as gently as possible, but forcefully as necessary, try to shepherd Lizzie towards the indoors and away from what remains of Father Atticus. She was having a hard day before this.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Is the swarm just chillin', or is it moving with intent?
Oh, it's moving with intent.
Towards us?
Yes.
Does my push spell, which costs 2 points a pool, interact with my might edge of 1?
Yes. So it'll only cost you 1 from your pool.
So I will spend 1 from my pool.
Mm-hmm.
And just make a swatting gesture at the serenade of cicadas there. And thereby cast push.
All right. So I'm going to have you roll.
Okay. 16. Am I adding anything to that?
Unless you wish to add something to it.
Nah.
Okay. You flick your hand up at the cicadas as they are spiraling down in a noisy swarm tornado towards your location. And you successfully manage to disperse them from the force of the spell. It's almost like they sense that you're casting and move to avoid it, but they quickly reform and go about their business spiraling downwards.
Okay. Well, fuck.
I'm going to make an attempt to goof up their trajectory. So, in mechanical terms, this is called Ribbons of Darkness. However hard this is, I think it's slightly easier because I am trained in using, though not in understanding, magic. And that's relevant here because I'm not sure what I'm doing in character. My eyes, which were already black in this light, look somehow blacker. Activated
Also,
charcoal.
I am trained in use of magic. Sorry, Danny.
Oh.
So would that have affected matters?
That absolutely affects the outcome of push.
Okay, cool.
So they scatter.
Okay.
Not permanently. It's like
Right.
they are now bouncing against an invisible barrier. But you have certainly bought some time.
This affects me too, then. I attempt to sound the edges of that barrier and fill it with a darkness that emerges from my mouth like black smoke.
That's horrifying. Also,
That is delightful.
don't we have an interaction, Drew?
We do, yeah. This is sort of a role-playing decision for Des, but what I'm doing also affects you somehow. In mechanical terms, this means we're going to get +1 on anything we do while fighting the same foe, collaborating on the same task, which those two things are probably synonyms right now. So exactly what that looks like to you, I think in character, this probably isn't the first time something like this has happened, but I'm pretty focused on the task at hand. So that's up to you. I'm going to roll now.
I'm going to say it is the first time.
Oh, okay. That
And
works
I'm
too.
just watching, Shadow illuminate Deilluminate words. I'm not good at them. The
disagree.
edges in character. The edges of my push shield.
Okay. I'm going to say you
Uh,
see something in the smoke that other people don't, and maybe that's a GM decision what you see, but
I
it's not
welcome
just
that.
smoke. Something is off about it. Yeah.
Other than it came out your mouth and you weren't
mean-
smoking a cigarette.
I don't really see anything wrong with that. We were having cigars earlier, weren't we? Yeah.
How long ago?
Doesn't matter.
Irrelevant. That is a 12.
+1?
Plus 1,
Mhm.
so it's a 13. Lucky 13.
And the task is eased a little bit, I believe.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, so for two different reasons. It's plus 1 because of the connection with Des, and it's eased a bit because I am trained in using magic that I do not necessarily understand.
So you squeak by.
Nice.
You feel it take hold, and the shadows pour out of your mouth briefly. To Silas, they're limbed with a sickly, glowing amber that no one else sees. And the silhouette of something horned. Then the shadows form around the invisible barrier, giving it boundaries and edges that those in attendance, if they're paying attention, could actually see. And the cicadas start rallying against the barrier almost immediately, the screams reaching a new pitch as though frustrated with this newfound impediment to their singular goal. Adam.
What are the chances that I am able to see the darkness pouring out of Cladwell to form this shadow barrier thing? I know I'm like busy, but it also seems like it would be eye-catching. I didn't want to just
Yeah, I
dictate.
don't think that one's a secret.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not gonna make you roll for
Sure.
that. That'll be a player choice.
Fair enough.
You won't see the sickly amber or
Right.
the horned thing, but
Sure.
you will see the shadows pouring out of his mouth.
If
So-
you did see the horned thing or the sickly amber, it would not much change your opinion of me. So.
Yeah. So like I'm doing my best to like usher Lizzie toward the house. I see at least some portion of the sequence of shadows pouring out of Cladwell's mouth. And I go, vote Cladwell indeed.
Excellent. Is BB doing anything in particular?
Well, what is the crowd doing? Are they headed towards the house? Because that would dictate what I do.
Most of them, a good number of them are heading towards the house. It's chaos. They're running over one another. Some are being trampled beneath others' feet. A few of them have broken off from the rest of the pack to rush down the hill back to their houses, perhaps the church below. Those are relatively in the minority. I would say about a third of the group is splitting off in just sheer panic to get away from the front of the altar and what's happened there.
It also occurs to me that at some point during all this and all this noise and screaming and confusion, I'm going to at least attempt to give sort of like a very specific sharp whistle that I will not attempt to do into the microphone here for everyone's sake.
Thank you.
In hopes that my little feller Libbet, who was kind of left along the tree line when I arrived yesterday, might hear it and run away from the cicadas and toward me and toward the house. I would prefer not to leave my little fox to get devoured by unholy insects.
I'm going to have you roll might
Might, huh? All right.
and see if your whistle can penetrate the screams of the
makes
brood
sense,
around
yeah.
the barrier.
I'm trying to see if I have anything that would apply. Probably not, looking at it. Well,
I can also, if you make a case for another stat, I'm all ears. I just figured might in terms of physical
makes sense.
endurance.
Yeah, it might make sense to me on that one. I am going to ease it by one, which is going to cost me 2 from my pool, from 12 down to 10, because I do have an edge of 1 in might. So I'll ease it by 1 difficulty there, and then rolling.
Probably a good idea. Those familiar with the difficulty table might know exactly the strength of what we're dealing with at this point.
17.
Yeah. Somehow your whistle penetrates through the screaming with almost an uncanny echo. You don't quite see Libet at first until you see the white little plume tuft at the tip of their tail, like a flag above the longa grass beside you, practically sprinting towards the house and away from the cicadas.
Whew. Thank goodness. I do try to keep moving with Lizzie toward the house, but should Libet catch up to us, I do extend an arm down so that he can run up and, ride on my back or shoulders or whatever.
Yeah, before Lizzie budges from the altar, she grabs the knife there and tucks it into her waistband. Libet does catch up with you about midway towards the house and jumps onto your shoulders, wrapping a tail protectively around your throat and snarling at the cicadas above.
That's a good critter.
BB?
Yeah, I'd like to look around and see if there's anything unseen that I should be aware of.
You've already spotted the rift from where the wedding crasher, not that there's a concept of this happen, step through. In terms of looking around, you notice something interesting, and that's that the cicadas themselves are something of a paradox. They are all of the same force, but all unique simultaneously. Specifically, if you really choose to look at them, and I'm going to have you roll for the outcome of this, you may notice something else.
Okay. I rolled a 14 on the d20.
You feel like the differences may be emanating from a particular part of their anatomy, but you can't quite figure it out past that. You can't make sense of this just yet. And the screaming continues.
All right. Don't know if it's too much to do in a turn, but I'd like to see what I can do to shepherd those that are just panicking in random directions, shepherding them towards the house to fall back. And shouting some of the same encouragement that I did before.
Go ahead and roll might. This is obviously going to be a different difficulty than the cicadas, since we're talking about humans now.
Okay. That is a 20.
Okay.
Okay, then.
So that gives you a major effect. In this case, your voice also takes up a strange resonance, and even those who were fully succumbed to the thralls of panic, their eyes rolling, their mouths parted in terror, they focus in on you.
Congratulations, you've got overtones.
And start sprinting towards the house. Those who stumbled either get back up to their feet of their own volition or helped back up by those that would have trampled them otherwise. And now it's a much more disorderly but orderly procession, not progression towards the house. I guess both apply in this case.
Yes, the wedding procession.
All right. So as this happens, I'm also kind of drawing my flintlock pistol and looking to see if I can find the vital center of whatever this thing is that I almost perceived before.
There isn't one.
Fair.
So, in due time, you all make it safely to the manor. Maybe you do it with your flintlock pistol brandished, your eyes squinting as you desperately look for the vulnerable core to this brood that has continued to beat against an invisible and shadowed barrier, shrieking in tones and tongues that are unfamiliar. And you make
my pistol is out, and also there are thin plumes of smoke coming out of my mouth and nose as I move.
Yeah,
Slowly
you look like something hellish. Thankfully, most people are too focused on the terrifying plague above to notice the thin tendrils of smoke that continue to pour from your nose, your mouth. I'm even going to say there's a little bit of tarriness coming from the corners of your eyes, like smoky tears.
I have a cloth specifically to wipe this substance, so I do so.
Fantastic. Yeah, you
Pursuit
clean
it.
yourself up nicely. Ed, you make it safely to the house with Lizzie and Libbet.
Excellent.
She is still sobbing and shaking,
Mm-hmm.
but her hand has not left the hilt of the knife in her waistband.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I approve of this, so I don't say anything.
Perfect. Silas, you make it in just behind the rest of the party and behind the family, and just before the servants slam shut and barricade the front door with whatever furniture is immediately available. They practically lob a bench, a rocking chair, a coat rack at the door.
I assist them.
Excellent. I'm not going to make you roll for that because you're strong. You're a himbo blacksmith. This
Indeed.
is an easy task for you.
This comes standard for him.
Moving things like furniture.
And thanks to BB's skill and voice, no one is locked outside.
Hmm.
The entryway is packed. Elbows bumping elbows. People are still screaming, crying, taking deep, shuddering breaths. One voice in particular penetrates the murmur of terror coming consistently from the crowd gathered inside. And that is a booming exclamation of witchcraft from Pa Thomas Ward. You can hear the spittle flying from this slurred exclamation. If you turn and look, Pa Jethro Gallows is positively red in the face, both from restraining the drunken Ward patriarch from rushing at Lizzie, and also from the effort of restraining himself from punching said patriarch in the jaw.
Well, this gives me an immediate thing that I'm doing, which is I am interposing myself between the would-be witch hunter and Lizzie, and I am gripping my hatchet in one hand while I glare at him with approximately 4 times the malice the average human body can contain.
This gives him some pause. He's a little bit under the influence, but he recognizes a hatchet when he sees it and lowers the jaundiced, bloated finger that he'd extended in Lizzie's direction.
I am glad. Should I need it, either here or elsewhere, I am trained in intimidation. So,
if I notice this all going down, I would just quietly take up a stance behind Ed's shoulder.
Perfect. You're able to do so.
Mhm.
This kind of takes Pa Ward another step down. He stops fighting against his restraints, namely Jethro Gallows suddenly vice-like arms around him. And Pa Gallows slowly and hesitantly lowers his arms as though he's not sure if it's quite safe, but he sees that his daughter at least is protected. And he takes this opportunity to look at Jethro dead in the eyes and say, "For nothing but God-fearing folk in this house, you can take your accusations elsewhere, good sir, namely out that front door if you keep this behavior up."
Seeing that this is more or less de-escalated, I will keep the hatchet in my hand, but like lowered to my side out of eyeline, and turn to sort of like try and check in with Lizzie. Just to be like, "You all right, duckling? I mean, not all right, but you whole?"
She takes a shuddering, deep breath and says, "Well, I'm as okay as I can be, all considering. That was my uncle."
Yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. I just needed to make sure that you weren't hurt physically.
Samuel appears at this point, cutting you off, and he's not able to quite body his way between you and Lizzie. He doesn't necessarily try, but the angle of his body is very much a visual divide between you and her. And he gingerly takes her chin in his hand, looks in her eyes, and gives her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. Clearly taking stock.
I'm going to try to sort of like relax slightly, out of the way, like he's canon all, but I still want to be on hand. People get a lot of points in my book for having their priorities straight from my perspective. So, not trying to be hostile or anything, but I'll probably start kind of looking around, taking stock of the space and the crowd, seeing where we might be able to go from here, and maybe even giving Cladwell a little bit of a little bit of slant eye as I go.
Yeah, I'd like to raise my voice a bit to the crowd and tell everyone, for the time being, everyone stay inside, stay civil, and I'd like to recruit some volunteers to go check the windows and doors, make sure everything's sealed. Don't go anywhere without a buddy.
As an aside, congratulations, Drew. You have performed the rare feat of making Cladwell both the party face and the party heel.
Don't have to turn if you're both from the beginning. As the last blackness puffs out from my nose and mouth, Godfearin, I say, much too late.
Even though it's late, Gallows still looks at you like approvingly, as though you had just paid him the utmost compliment. And there's a murmur from the crowd as BB's voice kind of casts over them. Shortly, there are parties. You get a group of about 6. It's not just the men of the crowd, some women from the congregation, presumably Father Atticus's congregation, with their jaws set and a look of determination in their eyes. Some servants have also joined you. Already you see a handful in the immediate area drawing the curtains closed after ensuring the windows are secure. It's a good thing, too, because you start to hear that rattling noise again. And it starts at one window in the room, moves to another. You get the sense that they are looking for a way in. There's a small stir as one of the guests finds a cicada on them, but it's quickly dealt with. One of the other guests peels their shoe off and smacks them in the torso to crush it against their body, and the scream is cut off abruptly as the cicada is squashed and falls to the floor.
All right. So I kind of speak to the assembled small groups, as well as kind of the crowd at large, and say, this isn't so different from the war if you think about it. The only thing deadlier than an enemy outside is an enemy inside. So let's all be civil here, and we'll all get through it.
Their looks of an initial confusion quickly fade to reverence as they realize what war that you were speaking of and what you must have done during said war. Most of the folks near you are a bit too young to have done anything about it, but they're clearly glomming onto you as their de facto leader in this scenario.
You have achieved authority.
Congratulations.
So would this also provide some cover to perhaps gather some select folks and go investigate the various rooms, such as a certain study?
The study?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to, air quotes, randomly select a few folks to come join me in securing the study.
Yeah. I take a couple moments to just sort of ascertain that Lizzie's safe as she can be, not getting harassed or anything, and to just kind of murmur something to her to let her know that I'm not disappearing on her. We're trying to see what's happening and what we can do to get us out of this. And I give Libet a little scratch on the head as I sort of peel off in the direction of the study.
Before you can peel off, Samuel grabs you by the arm.
Oh, okay. I, give him a, I give him a look that just kind of says, "Okay, explain," but I don't say anything.
He doesn't really recoil, but he suddenly seems sheepish about it. His eyes dart down towards the carpet, and so low you can almost not hear it. Not because the words aren't sincere; they feel incredibly sincere, but because he's suddenly shy. He says, "Thank you for looking out for her.
Of course, Samuel.
Get down to the bottom of this," and he makes eye contact with you. I give
him a
speaks.
very serious nod and say, "I will," or well, failure's not an option. I know you'll keep her safe, and I give him a respectful nod, one man to another, and head toward the study, putting my hatchet back in its belt loop.
While everyone can still see us, I stand in BB's new refracted light. Actually, a salute. What would a salute have been in the early 1800s? I grasp the visor of a cap I'm not wearing, as if to say, "Look at me, I'm with a veteran." And then I join the party at random.
So I take it everyone
has nothing to do with Cladwell, Adam.
Yeah, but now it does by design. I take it everyone gathers in the study.
Yeah. I probably make a beeline to the spot where I saw the evidence of passage earlier, and kind of start poking around a little as everybody else kind of gathers as well. I'm paying attention, but kind of getting down to business as well.
These Vexham would-be intruders, it's a good thing there are no secret passages, am I right?
I will just look at Cladwell.
I won't even do that much. I will pretend he did not speak.
You would expect to see doubt cross my face for the first time. It does not.
Well, time will tell, Mr. Cladwell. I'd like to check out the card situation, the card game situation.
Excellent. So you see what appears to be an otherwise normal deck of cards, but each one bears a unique drawing on it. So one has like a rattlesnake tail illustrated. They each have numbers inscribed underneath the drawings as well. There appears to have been just a basic game of poker that was being played with the individual players' hands face down. But the card box is still right next to the entire deck of cards.
Does this strike me as a potential cipher?
There is something of the magic inclination to this deck. It is not so much magical in and of itself, but a means of communicating. You realize that you're looking at what is a hand-drawn tarot deck.
I am trained in understanding magic. I would like to understand what the current array of cards might signify. If it is something that can be read. Otherwise, I will perhaps just kind of gather it for later.
So you get that there's the standard arcana with an Appalachian twist. So the rattlesnake in this case would serve as a tower. There's a lone mountain with 3 peaks that towers above the rest as the Empress. The Emperor is a winding river. And you have the sense that should you collect this deck and perform a reading, not only would it give you insight, but it would also alter your circumstance. Depending on the card, you were fortunate or unfortunate, in some cases, enough to draw. You are dealing with an artifact, not a cipher.
Okay. Well, I suppose as my compatriots are looking for those tunnels, there's no time like the present to use this artifact.
Okay, let's start.
Read the book.
Woohoo!
Or
Our
cards,
first
as the case may
artifact
be.
or cipher use in game. So it is specifically called a conjure deck. And depending on your dice roll will determine what card you draw.
All right.
So I'm going to have you roll 1d6. And it may be worth noting that you're going to use it now, which is great. I love that choice. But the use was limited in the textbook, or listen to me, the textbook, the rule book, for once per day.
It's good to know. I've made my choice and I don't want to remind us that much. So this is the time.
You open this can of worms and I lie in it.
Yep. 2.
A 2. You draw a 6 of diamonds with a rabbit on it. And holding the card, you realize that this is not any major or minor arcana that you're used to. Something else entirely. If you rip this card in half, you can take on the aspects of a creature. And you would gain assets and some abilities relevant to the creature you choose.
Okay. So I get to choose what kind of a creature I might partially embody?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just had the thought Animorphs of Appalachia.
Animorphs of
Ooh.
Appalachia. Yes, welcome.
Hell yes.
Entirely new creation.
That's our next one shot. All right. I will rip the card in half and take on the aspects of a rat. Great sense of smell, great survival. Get a bad rap because of their impact on humanity, but I've seen my fair share of rats and in character, I would say.
Yeah, so now
And they're better than Cladwell?
Yeah. You gain an asset in sense of smell and also an asset in survival. So when you have rolls relevant to either of those skills, remind me, and it'll be eased a difficulty step. Now, the interesting thing about artifacts is that though you can use them more than once, they have a feature to them called the come due, which means that their magic is limited. So each time you utilize an artifact, you have to roll a d20 and hope that you don't roll a 1 because that will cause the cards to become dormant and unusable.
Mm-mm.
Okay. It sounds good. I give a quick sniff around. I pocket the rest of the cards and look towards the progress of my companions in finding that secret passage if there is one.
Do you need to roll the d20 now?
You do.
Oh, thank you. 9.
You're good. The deck of cards remains unchanged, and you have a weird feeling of gratitude stemming from it.
As my companions are looking around, I'm going to use my skill encouragement. What that allows me to do is maintain via inspiring oration a buff to whatever everyone's trying to do, as long as it's something I myself am trained in this case, perception. Of course, being me, I'm doing it sort of in reverse. I am sarcastically saying that it's impossible anyone will find a hidden entrance, thereby encouraging them to find a hidden entrance.
Very amusingly, one of my special abilities from being rebellious is Nope, which eases tasks when doing the opposite of what someone commands or advises.
So I'm saying, go ahead, try as you might to find a hidden entrance. Ridiculous.
This is the most beautiful stacking of abilities in a party that I could have hoped for. So who exactly is looking at the bookcase? Ed, I know you are. Silas, are you also investigating it?
No, because I know I'm not good at it.
Well, I might also be telling while I'm looking. I might be telling Silas. Silas, any chance you saw that that girl you spoke to about her missing friend anywhere? Probably could could use her help if we can find her.
I will think, and it takes literal gears turning. Did I see her?
Yeah. She was seated on the foot of one of the grand staircases, hugging the banister and crying.
Okay. You want I should fetch her?
If you can, I mean, I wouldn't force her, but we could use her insight, I think.
Sure thing.
And then concurrently with that, as well as after Silas heads out, I am attempting to find some indication or mechanism of how a hidden door might be opened in this room, starting from that bookshelf where I had seen the dirt before. And I guess if my tracking is useful there, if there's a role involved, I leave that as a decision for the GM to make.
I'm going to go ahead and have you roll.
Okay.
Are you, just for clarity, are you looking to confirm that this is where the secret passageway is? I think you might have just said that, but I was adjusting my notes for a moment.
That and how to open
Yeah,
it,
I'm mostly looking to get the thing open.
Gotcha.
Like, if there isn't one here, I'd hope to discover that, because I know the dirt was circumstantial, not conclusive evidence, but that's where I'm starting, and I'm looking to try to see if I can get any sort of indication of how one might access said secret doors, being discouragingly encouraged by Cladwell.
So I imagine that's going to ease at 2 steps.
If I've got my head on straight, it would be 1 from Cladwell's action, 1 from Nope, and then maybe if I'm allowed to use tracking, it might be eased a 3rd step from being trained in tracking.
I'll let you use tracking. Okay. And that will bring the difficulty down to 0.
Oh, excellent. I'm probably muttering under my breath, cussed coxcomb, I'm going to find this stupid door. I'm gonna thinking there's no door here.
Now that you're looking at it closely, you see that there's definite scuff marks from where the bookcase is simply pulled away from the wall. Okay. For all intents and purposes, it's a normal bookcase and used as such. Mm-hmm. But you can see evidence of where previously it had been moved.
Mm-hmm. I may then see if I can get BB to sort of help me haul on it and see if we can just drag it away and see what's behind it.
I'll do what I can to help.
Okay, awesome. So BB, you're helping, which will ease the difficulty by 1.
Okay.
There's going to be a bit of a might roll here.
Okay.
I mean, y'all could wait until I return.
Yes,
that's true.
Do you choose to wait until Silas and Amelia return?
I feel like that would be the smart thing, but I don't think it's what I would do in this instance. So I think I may be at least pressed for us to just go for it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and give me a roll then.
All right. That is a 15.
Yeah, that you are successful. It takes a little bit of that back and forth, so you manage to pull on one corner of the bookshelf and it moves forward, and then you pull on the other side. And in due time, and I'm going to rule that this is about the time when Silas and Amelia return, you reveal something unexpected. So this house...
Unexpected to us or just unexpected to Cladwell?
Well, mostly Cladwell, but unexpected to everyone. There's a door behind the bookshelf, and it appears somehow older than the house surrounding it. The fixtures are iron. They're not this shining brass that you've seen elsewhere in the house, which kind of catches your attention. There's a keyhole and just a simple handle made out of old, aged rope. What's most concerning is the writing on the door. It's been smeared into the wood a long time ago with something red. And it says, But when I saw thee polluted in thine own blood, I said unto thee, when thou wast in thy own blood, live in thine own blood, in thy blood live.
Well,
I will stare at that for a beat, just long enough to read all of it, and then I am going to turn with a movement so sharp that you could cut yourself on it to glare triumphantly at Cladwell, making sure that he has a full view of the door.
I am speechless. Then I smile. And then I stop smiling.
I have a sledgehammer. What need have we for a key?
Amelia at that furtively smiles in your direction. It's kind of a weak smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes, but she pulls the keychain that most of the servants have off of her belt and rifles to one that doesn't have an actual end to it. It's more of, you could think of it as a completely smooth key, not designed to turn any pins. But she looks at you and says, I have this. It works on any door.
I will gesture at it. No need to make noise then.
BB, you pick up something looking at the door. You see that not only is it locked physically, but it's warded. And it's not something that's going to affect you. You feel the ward's gaze looking to whatever lies beyond the door.
Good.
Y'all should be aware that whatever's behind this door, there's some little razzle-dazz to try to keep something in.
I pause for a moment regarding you, then nod and start rolling up my sleeves. But I speak briefly to Amelia. Amelia, is it? Thanks for your help, hon. Is there anything you can tell us that might help us, well, with figuring all this out, but also just finding and helping your friend if we can? Silas told us a little about what you said, but seems like you'd know, what we could do, what she's like to need.
I'm not going to make you roll for this because you've all gained some clout in Amelia's book by revealing something that she had only suspected was in the study. So she looks at you, considering for a moment, and takes a deep inhale and says, I know it's bad form to spit upon the name of the recently deceased, but I know that she and Father Atticus had some sort of conflict or fight. I don't know what it was about. It was I couldn't hear them. I was out gathering some water from the well, and they were by the river.
Well, thank you for trusting us with that. We'll do our best for her and for you and for everyone.
I will nod emphatically when Ed says that.
She gives you an appreciative smile and shrugs one shoulder. Y'all didn't have to go out of your way to help me, least of all humble servant, but I really appreciate it. I owe you a debt by the old compacts and the new.
I nod a little bit, but with a slight chuckle and a sideways smile, and I say, for what it's worth, rather help you than, and I glance, hopefully in a way that he cannot see in Cladwell's direction. And I just say, some others. But, yeah, I guess you're welcome, but don't go thanking us too much yet. We ain't done much so far. And with that, my sleeves are secured, and I, kind of ease my bow around my shoulders and give Libet a little scratch, and then look around the room. Well, shall we? And I gesture towards the door, drawing with my hand sort of a imaginary line from the key in Silas's hand towards or was it
I think the
Silas?
key's in Amelia's
Oh,
hand.
I thought she'd handed it over. The key in Amelia's hand. Then, sorry. Towards the door.
She nods, and you're kind of surprised to see a flush come to her cheeks. She says, I was told by that witchy woman that I have to tell it a secret. Would you mind stopping your ears?
I sort of look at her, look around to the others, and then obligingly I put my palms flat to my ears.
I do the same.
Stick my fingers in my ears.
Sure.
This allows me to
All of-
look down and brood a little more privately.
Nice. So all of you stop your ears respectfully?
Yeah.
Okay. You don't hear anything, but you... At least... I'm going to have you all roll intelligence.
Hmm.
And this isn't against a certain difficulty. This is a fun GM roll.
Okay.
Where whoever rolls the highest will pick something up.
Well,
Not
I
that
rolled
this
an
is
18.
Oh, there you go. This is not that this is necessarily relevant, but I am trained in intellect tasks that involve losing sanity or equanimity.
Well, I was going to say I have an inability in listening, so
Yeah.
I have an inability in social interactions.
That
but
said-
I'm also...
I did roll an 18. So
I also rolled an 18.
What?
17 for me.
Wow. The universe.
And Nick below with the 17.
this is unprecedentedly good rolling for me, so I may be jinxing it by pointing it out, but I think it's because I am using my Antifa colored D20.
So, because you have an inability in
Mhm.
listening, Adam, I'm going to knock you down 1 point.
makes perfect sense.
So now we have 2 pair.
Yeah. So both of you, without really meaning to, you're kind of watching what she's doing with fascination, because you picked up at this point that this is no normal key that a usual servant would have on their ring, and she's managed to hide it in plain sight. But you see her mouth the word love. And as you watch, she inserts the key into the keyhole, which you now notice has what appears to be a bloody fingerprint over the keyhole. Turns the key. You hear it unlock. BB, you see the words ease and vanish altogether. And the door swings open as the key vanishes from her hand. The rest of the keys falling to the ground. She tries to catch them and isn't quite successful. They do clatter, but it's not so loud a noise that you think it'll attract any unwanted attention.
All right. This might be a good opportunity to ask whether this would count towards my character arc. My character arc is solving a mystery, and now we have confirmed that there are, in fact, secret passages here.
Yeah, that absolutely would count. You're going to get 2 experience points because this would be a definite step in fulfilling your character arc. The door opens. The keys drop. Amelia recovers them. The one she used to open the door vanishes. But as the door opens, stale air erupts into the room. It smells of petrichor and something else you can't quite put your finger on, a sweet musk. Like this, the scent of rotten cucumbers comes to mind. And it's pitch black.
That was going to be my question.
If that's your question and now answered, then I would like to do what I can to put my finger on the scent using my rat nose.
I love this. So go ahead and...
Is it visually ratty?
I'll leave that
motion,
up
at
to
least.
Nick's discretion.
The sniffing motion at the very minimum ought to be, I guess, right?
Yeah. So how rat-like you look is up to you, Nick.
Yeah, so I will say that physically there are no changes with the morphology of my features, but I do adopt the mannerisms while sniffing about of a rat so uncannily that you could swear that there are some morphological changes. Just, you know, I embody
So
the
you're an
rat.
anamorph by vibes only.
Yes.
Or a very committed method actor.
Hmm. I'll just say it's giving rat.
Serving rat.
I
like
hate
that.
that.
So I am going to have you roll. Your rat senses are easing it by a step.
Okay.
So roll intelligence for me.
All right. I would also like to add some effort to this, which would usually cost 3, but I've got an intellect edge of 1, so I think that'll bring it down to 2.
Correct.
Okay. That's a 9.
You're successful.
Hmm.
Your rat senses tell you that this is unmistakably the musk of a predator.
Okay. There's something that hunts down here. Or was recently enough to leave this in the air.
As you say that, you think you hear the soft, skittering, frantic sounds of some critter or another shying away from the sudden intrusion of light from the maw of that great and terrible tunnel that you stand at the foot of.
There's no way forward but through. But be on your guard.
I will note at this point, you may want to bring a light source with you when you're in a study.
It is very dark. You are likely to be eaten by a grue. That is obviously out of character.
I
However,
was going to inquire as to whether there were lamps or candles that we could pilfer from the study before entering the darkness.
There's some brass candles. They're your standard Victorian person awake at night and roaming the halls of their manors style candlesticks. But they are scattered throughout the study. There's 1 to 2, I'll say. The rest of the candles are on the wall.
Can hedge magic also create light, or is that outside of the purview? It's reading
Let me pull
from
up your
the
character sheet.
Yeah. So it says,
Well, you're reading from the hedge magic description itself. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, you can perform small tricks, temporarily change the color or basic appearance of a small object, cause small objects to float through the air, clean a small area, mend a broken object, prepare but not create food, and so on.
So I think hedge magic can kind of perform small tricks and change the circumstance of something already extant. I don't think it can create a light source, but you can make a candle float, which would raise the availability of accessible candles that you can carry without burning yourself.
All right. I'd like to do that.
Okay. Is there a cost associated with your hedge magic?
There is a cost of 1, which is offset by my edge of 1 for intellect.
So it's a free action.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
This will also leave both hands free, which might come in handy.
Yeah. So a candle kind of shimmies for a moment on one of the wall mounts. After some time, it manages to pull itself free from the stand, but it takes a bit of force, and you jerk your hand accordingly as you're met with that resistance. And then it floats almost languidly over to you, hovering where in front of you or just off to the side, wherever you'd like, really, dripping wax onto Paul Gallo's carpet as it does so.
I will just raise an eyebrow at you at that.
I will take one of the candle holders and look around for a moment, and then hand it in the direction of Cladwell because my hands are more valuable free than his.
Not wrong.
And I will also kind of gesture Libet down onto the ground kind of near me so that he can do a little scouting and presumably has better vision in low light than I do, as well as a better sense of smell as we get ready to go. So I'll sort of get him hopefully walking a little ahead and just to one side of me.
I take the light source, and I also take the message exactly wrong. I'm thinking, well, I'm glad there were no hard feelings, because I'm the leader now. I'm holding the light source.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So are you the first one to step into the tunnel then?
Bravely, yes.
Silas, do you grab the remaining candlestick?
No, because a sledgehammer is a two-hand affair.
Yeah. So Amelia picks that up and adopts a position kind of at the rear.
Mm-hmm.
She senses that you are armed at a wedding for some reason, and therefore she'll let you take the lead on this dark and spooky tunnel. So you step into the tunnel. It has that kind of, the stale air scent intensifies as you step into the darkness. And at first you can see the structure of the house above, namely through the support beams that extend down into the tunnel to ensure that wherever this leads or whatever this purpose is of the tunnel does not disrupt the structural integrity of the manor above. And I'll have each of you roll an intelligence roll.
Okay.
Woo.
Except for you, BB.
Sick.
Interesting.
Mm.
Mine almost fell off the table, so I'm going to do that again.
12 for me.
12 for
15.
you.
15 for me.
Mm-hmm.
5.
Ed, you're the
Womp
only one
womp.
that doesn't notice this.
Mhm,
But on each support structure and the same red material as the writing on the door, you see a sigil. BB, you notice it because it has that sort of magical affect to it, and you realize that this was another layer of wards that have since been dispersed by the unlocking. In
Mm.
fact, some of the support beams, as you walk by them, have splintered such that the
So we're
sigil,
bringing the house down.
the sigil is no longer visible.
Mm.
It doesn't seem like someone's been down here recently. There's a multitude of cobwebs on the ceiling. The tunnel floor is littered with leaves, so decomposed they become pale and papery white. Though occasionally something does crack underfoot. Usually it's just shale, but at one point you find yourself trotting on the small, brittle bones of a rodent.
Mm. Yeah, we'd better finish whatever's down here, because we've cracked the lock on its cage.
Yeah, I'll sort of nod while I keep ruling that I'm not seeing the support details because I'm keeping my eyes on the ground, kind of scanning, and not really sure what I'm looking for.
With the hand that's not holding the light source, I salute you again.
Mm.
Glad to have you here.
Can I detect anything of the scent of a human being? I mean, I don't know what Cassie smells like necessarily, but
Yeah. Go ahead and roll again.
16?
Yeah, that definitely works. There's a stale scent of someone being down here. They haven't been here recently, but you can tell that people have walked through this tunnel before.
All right. I'll share this with my companions.
Mhm.
This is maybe actually something then we using that information and the light that I do have in looking at the detritus on the ground, the leaves, the shale, the occasional skeletons of small animals. Does any of it look disturbed? And if so, can I tell like how frequently, how many people, what information can I glean from like kind of applying tracking to this, I guess is my what I'm
Fantastic.
hoping to accomplish. So
Go ahead and roll intelligence for me.
yeah, and that's going to be eased by being trained in tracking, but I'm not going to do any effort on this one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Boy, that's a 2. My luck has turned.
Fortunately, because it's eased, it was a very low challenge for you with tracking.
Mhm.
It doesn't look disturbed.
Okay.
But at one point, something catches your eye amongst the leaf litter.
Mhm.
You reach down and pull out the tail end of a snake shed. I'm gonna roll. You don't have to roll again
Mhm.
because another skill you have is the ability to identify species. And you can't do that with this, but looking at the scales on the snake shed underneath where the vent would be, you notice that it's a single roll instead of 2 rows of scales on the belly, implying that whatever was here was venomous. And, fairly small, nothing too alarming at this point.
I guess the only thing that changes really is that I start intentionally sort of making a little bit of extra noise and motion in the leaf litter with my feet, just in case I can scare something away ahead of me instead of stepping directly on it.
Smart. So, Ed, you're stomping with a little bit more gusto to potentially scare off any snakes that might be around. And the rest of you are walking. The tunnel is seeming more eerie, illuminated by candlelight. Occasionally you see what looks like dew glittering in the rafters or the ceiling above you of the tunnel, only to realize that spider eyes watching intently from the cobwebs that they have carefully constructed. And unceremoniously, the tunnel narrows so that you have to walk single file, and it also begins to ascend. Eventually, after what feels like an astonishingly long period of time, you encounter a cellar door. It's thankfully unlocked. It appears latched, but not barred closed, but it's covered in thick cobwebs, so old that they've caught dust and leaves. Some relatively whole, others that have deteriorated into skeleton leaves, and Ed, what you recognize as another snakeskin portion.
Interesting. I guess just kind of grunt, at seeing this and go, well, I have an idea. Couple kinds of predators maybe that may be down here with us. Gesture significantly at both the webs and the snakeskin portion.
I have no particular ability to see the unseen, but I haven't actually asked, what does my shadow think of these shadows around us?
Interestingly enough, it doesn't really ping anything. There might be an old remnant, but nothing recent. You have the sense, uncannily, that something dark had passed through here, but a long time ago. And that kind of informs you that these tunnels are certainly older than Timble Manor itself.
Nothing we can't handle, I'm sure, I say, probably incorrectly, taking yet another handkerchief out of my bag and starting to brush aside the many cobwebs.
Because, yeah, you are in front, so.
I said my bag. I don't have a bag. Out of my suit coat. Yeah.
Just like 30% of the volume of your suit coat is secreted handkerchiefs.
It's all guns and cloths.
I like to think that it's a modified, like, clown handkerchief, in that you can, like, tear them off paper towel style.
For aspiring senators, every handkerchief's a clown handkerchief, huh? Forget me. I'm brushing aside cobwebs.
Yes. Amelia observes you looking like she wishes she could crawl out of her own skin. No disrespect, Father Atticus, but...
Too soon.
I mean, he didn't crawl out of his own skin unless he is now a swarm of cicadas.
True.
You don't know.
He did not crawl out of his own skin, but she looks visibly uncomfortable and scratches at her scalp as though sensing the many skittering legs of spiders. So I take it...
When I've cleared enough that we can get to the door, I drop the handkerchief as though it has no further use, and also as though I'm laying a challenge to whatever is here.
I like the dropping of the handkerchief. If you're going to open the door, I will require a might roll from whomever wants to take the lead on this.
I mean, Cladwell's in the front, making the decisions, so...
Sure, why not? 17.
So, It takes a bit of effort, a fair more than you feel you can accomplish without a slight smirk to your dignity as you grunt and manage to swing the cellar doors wide open.
Halfway through trying and initially failing, I look back and grin at everyone like, I'm just, well, watch me now. Then
So you do manage to get the door open, even if it takes more effort than you'd like. And the group of you emerge next to an old tobacco barn. Looking behind you to your left, you can see the dim lights of Temple Manor at a distance. Just behind the darkened storm cloud of cicada bodies still swarming around the building, beating against an invisible barrier that seems to be weakening.
Mm-hmm.
To your opposite side, you can hear the distant roar of the Clinch River. It's a ways away, obviously not within flooding distance of the tobacco barn, but you can still hear the current. At this distance, more notably than the river, are the screams of the cicadas that sound more like the distant peal of alarm bells due to the volume and frequency and consistency with which the sound is coming.
This may be something our listeners would already have kept track of. I'm not sure. What time of day is it by this point?
I would say just a little bit afternoon.
Okay. So we've emerged near an old tobacco barn, not inside of it.
Yes, near.
Okay.
It's bright daylight outside still.
Sure.
You're almost blinded by the sudden transition in light.
Mm-hmm. Looking around a little bit, I'll say, well, guess the obvious thing to check out is that barn over there. Make it a question at the very last moment.
It's as good a idea as any. Before departing these passages entirely, I'd like to see if there's any wards on this side of things.
Or
any gallows for that matter.
So the way the cellar door has opened, it's truly like a true cellar. It's into the ground. It opens so that the doors are now flat.
Mm-hmm.
But you sense that there are wards on the other side. It's a fainter sense, as though these were more subtle than the painted-on ones of the house. But you can still sense their remnants, nevertheless.
Okay.
So there was something in the passage then, rather than here.
Keyword might be was.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to determine, like, on the other side of the door, in the manor, it seemed as though it was trying to keep something out of the house and into the passage. On this side, is it the same kind of a thing, so that whatever this thing is that was trying to be contained was in this passage, or it's facing in the same direction, so it's trying to ward against intrusion again?
Great question. So you lift the door and you see what looks like some rudimentary numbers carved into the door. You realize that it's Bible verses again, the same verse as was on the door in the study. And what you're looking at is a series of defenses.
Okay.
Incrementally increasing in strength, with the strongest leading into the study, the sigils reinforcing it, and then the weakest being the basic numerical entry for the Bible verse. So it's not trying to keep something in the passage, but trying to ward against something outside that
Using
might
the
seek
passage.
entrance into the house.
Okay, thank you.
Emerging here as my eyes adjust, I'm not too hopeful because there weren't a whole lot of signs in the passage, but if we are hypothesizing that this passage has something to do with Cassie's disappearance. I'm thinking there could be signs of passage, in the vicinity of this entrance as well. Daylight should hopefully help make it a little easier to find if there's anything to find. And this seems like it's kind of in my wheelhouse. So I'm going to check. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe I'll roll terribly. But
go ahead and give me a roll.
yeah, so this will be eased 1 by my training and tracking, but I'm not going to spend more effort out of my intellect pool just yet.
Okay.
I rolled a 1.
Oh.
Merry Christmas, Robin.
Oh, Lord.
Oh boy. So that is what we would call a crit failure.
Uh-huh. Sure is.
And I get to make a GM intrusion without awarding experience points.
I'm celebratorily dancing over here
Yay.
to about the tempo of a funereal march.
You're distracted from trying to track because the voices of the cicadas have suddenly sounded like voices that you've heard from people that you've escorted out of the woods.
Do any of them sound like me?
Sure.
So
It's hard to tell. There's such a volume of them. But it seems as though it's a comfort, at least, that your voice might be in the mix. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the voices of the deceased at this point.
I was going to ask as a point of clarification, is this only me hearing this, or is this evident to all and sundry?
It's only you.
Okay, just making sure. So I probably will recognize Silas's voice among the others that I recognize. And probably the outward sign that everybody else sees is me starting to look around as I'm observing things and moving slowly, and then almost immediately stopping and going kind of rigid, not looking at any of you, kind of clenching my jaw and determinedly not looking in the direction of the cicadas for probably a good 10 seconds, maybe more, before I do my best to shake it off. But I'm going to be visibly tense until this is no longer the case.
You grow rigid, and the cicadas gain several feet in their march towards the house.
And I don't find any evidence of anybody having come this way, which is, what I was hoping to contribute. Alas.
Yeah, you're a little distracted.
Just a little.
So what do we do, players?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a barn.
Mm-hmm. The barn is unlocked.
Well, isn't it just our lucky day?
Mm-hmm. So I take it you pull the doors open and step inside of the tobacco barn.
Look inside, anyway.
You look inside. Okay. It's large. There is the tall ceiling that almost fades to perfect black. Shafts of dusty sunlight drift in through gaps between the lumber. Though not enough to fully illuminate the barn within, it remains kind of gloomy. It smells of green and dirt and animals. Immediately by the door, you can see a small work table that's littered with a humble assortment of tools, along with a wax-sealed jar of smoky glass that appears to be partially filled with dirt. There's also something moving at the very back of the barn.
Well, I'll have a look at the, Can I see the thing moving in the back of the barn?
Yeah, as your eyes adjust, you realize it's something relatively large. It's too large to be your average coon or possum. And it shifts, and you finally see the black fur and stately horns of an old goat munching on a haystack. Otherwise, the barn is silent, except for the occasional drip of something from the rafters. And even in the sun-dappled gloom, the pool beneath the dripping is unmistakably red.
Mm-hmm.
I follow the course of the drip upward with my eyes.
It's coming somewhere from the darkness. You don't necessarily see anything unusual about it. But when you relax your eyes and reach out with your gift, you sense darkness as a whole from the rafters above. There is a sense that it is diffuse, but it's there nevertheless, just that little tickling in the back of your mind. Fielding, you feel it too.
Hmm.
There is a ladder visible on the right-hand side of the barn that goes up into the rafters. It's only wide enough for one person at a time.
Taking this all in, once I kind of get up to speed with everyone else, I'll kind of sigh and be like, guess I'll do the climbing. Don't suppose, BB, that handy candle you got could follow me for a time?
Certainly. Happy to do so.
Thank you much.
It does.
So I am going to start working my way up the ladder. I'm going to signal Libbet to stay on the floor near the foot of the ladder, kind of on lookout a little bit. Don't much trust that goat, but if it's just munching on hay, then, I'm not going to interrupt anybody's luncheon.
You find that the first rung you place your foot on creaks in warning. Feels pretty rickety. It's clearly handmade from spare lumber. A little aged like the rest of the barn. But I'm going to need a speed or might roll to see how you do ascending this ladder.
I'm going to do a speed roll, and I don't think I have much in the way of skill training that would help, but I do have one edge in speed, so I think I'm going to go ahead and apply effort there for 2 from my pool, bringing it from 14 to 12. Is really too bad that I don't have more effort. I would love to ease that another step, but oh well. Here goes. A 2!
Oh, jeez.
For the record, my last 3 rolls have been a 2, a 1, and a 2.
Consistency is consistent.
This is more what I'm used to in rolling D20s than my earlier successes with 15s and 17s and such.
Like when it rains blood, it pours blood.
Yeah.
So your foot slips from underneath you as one of the rungs rotates, and you clock yourself pretty firmly on the jaw. It dazes you a little bit, but you manage to barely hold on to the ladder.
Okay.
I'll let you roll another speed or might to see if you're able to recover your grip and continue your climb.
Okay. Does that equate to any damage?
Go ahead and roll for me.
Okay, I will.
I'm gonna roll for damage and then see how you do.
Okay. So I'm gonna keep this one to speed. I'm gonna apply effort again, bringing my pool down to 10. Ladder, the most dangerous thing I have faced so far.
That's true. Unexpectedly so.
You must face the gazebo alone.
Yeah. Okay. So this time, I eased the difficulty by 1 with effort, and then I rolled an 18.
Okay, good.
Mark an improvement.
Yeah.
You managed to recover. Go ahead and roll might for me to see if you take damage.
Okay. Might. I mean, I guess if I do take damage, it's going to reduce my pool anyway, so I'll go ahead and apply effort for 2, bringing my might pool from 10 to 8, because why not? Okay, this one was a 13.
Yeah. You managed to brace your jaw such that you sustain no injury, though your confidence is going to leave a nasty looking welt.
Hopefully it makes me look intimidating and not silly.
So in due time, you reach or begin to near where you think the rafters may be. And you kind of see a platform where you could emerge and step onto it, but that's when you hear it. It's a low hiss at first. That almost sounds like a bitter old lady shushing you during the preacher's sermon at church, if it sounded anything remotely human.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna. I have I can pause, leaving myself perhaps vulnerable on the ladder, or I can proceed, potentially provoking some sort of response, but giving myself better footing. I guess as Ed, I'm going to do my best to sort of secure my position while I try to ascertain the nature of the potential threat.
So you do climb out onto the platform?
Yeah.
As you start moving again and start to secure your position, the hiss becomes higher, shriller, until it's an ear-piercing shriek that can be heard from below, too. Something white erupts from the rafters without a sound, wild black eyes gazing straight into your soul as it moves towards you and then directly overhead, as a whisper of air passes by, revealing the whole of the terrible ghostly creature to be a barn owl.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. I am going to grit my teeth as I get my heart rate under control and start grumbling old-timey expletives at it, not quite under my breath, but hopefully not loud enough to be heard from below. After a moment of cursing the owl, I will call out, not super loud, but hopefully so that my voice carries audibly to below, to say, stupid barn owl, and then turn my attention, hopefully with a candle floating near me so that I can see what's going on, to my surroundings on this platform.
So up here, you're surrounded by bundles of tobacco laid out to dry. It only marks you as a little bit strange, just because it seems a little bit early for the tobacco to be ripe enough to be dried out for a product. I'm going to have you roll intelligence, and I'll let you use tracking. Just search for the source of the dripping.
So yeah, that'll ease my roll by 1, and I'm not going to expend additional effort here at this time. So eased by 1 step, and my roll is back to form, a 3.
Well, at least you made the right choice on easing the roll.
Yeah.
That, thankfully for you, you've eased the roll, and a success is either matching the target number or above the target number, and you've matched it. So it takes a little bit of searching, but you realize that the strange viscous fluid is coming from one of the bundles of tobacco. It's been clearly gnawed on. The edges are raw and jagged. So some critter has been sampling the crop, and the red fluid is coming from the red veins of the crop.
So
there's also a large snakeskin strung in the rafters just above you, leading to believe that, well, at least 2 critters have figured out that the tobacco is attracting rodents.
So just to be clear, I can tell that the tobacco itself is quote unquote bleeding, not something that's rolled up in the bundle.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like a protective sap from the tobacco.
Gotcha.
Which is also a bit strange.
Yeah. I guess while I'm up here and looking around, I now have kind of head on a swivel because I see the snake skin above me. But I am going to approach the gnawed bundle and try to sort of untie, loosen, unroll it. see if there's anything about this particular bundle that is attracting the attention of the nibblers, if I can.
You manage to unhook it from the peg from which it's dangling to dry. In due time, you have the twine removed from it too, and it's just a bunch of tobacco leaves. Nothing remarkable about it.
Okay. I'm going to take one final kind of look around the platform, through the rafters above me, and then just, again, call just loud enough to carry that I'm headed down. And then
Did you find anything up there?
carefully come back down the ladder. And once I am on the floor, I'll convey, so that because I'm going to talk softer. Yeah, some out-of-season tobacco drying up there, and something got into one of the bundles and gnawed on it. It's dripping the sap down from up above. There's another snakeskin. That makes 3 now up there. But other than the oddities of the tobacco itself, you can find nothing too significant.
My mind goes back to the special tobacco that we all smoked earlier this evening. I give a bit of a shudder. And I'd like to go over to the sap that's pooling on the floor and give it a good sniff.
It smells like tobacco.
How do rat noses feel about tobacco?
It's very potent, a bit overpowering, a little too fresh and green for your liking, but you think that you might want to gnaw on the leaves.
Nom, 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 nom.
God help me, but I do.
I'm sorry, what?
I do think that we should look around further before heading out.
Yes.
Oh, Adam.
I was gonna, because he was saying, "God help me, I do." I was trying to figure out if that meant like acknowledging that he did want to chew on the leaves, or trying to actually go up to the platform and chew on the leaves.
That's an important distinction.
That
It
is.
is an
I was
important
proceeding on the
distinction.
assumption you said that out loud with no context, but if that wasn't what happened, yeah.
No, let's roll with it. I said that part out loud, responding to an especially strong inner monologue.
Oh, good. So you do not actually embark to gnaw on the leaves. You just remark on your impulse to do so.
A little cryptic.
So, Ed, you've made it back down to the ground at this point, and that's when there's a sudden stirring of sound towards the back of the barn. All at once, the shadows at the rear congeal and strike. You have the impression of hot metal red eyes and darkness and teeth. Far, far too many yellow fanged teeth and a gaping, inky maw before those fangs as long as a working man's forearms sink into the goat, envelop its writhing body in black coils, and drag the poor screaming thing into a great hole at the back of the barn, snapping the lead that once held the goat in place. The goat's screams contort into a horrible, keening noise of a living thing ushered by pain beyond a state of consciousness. Then a wet crunch, the unmistakable sound of bones snapping and piercing through the flesh, cuts off the keening altogether. You stand in stunned silence for a moment, listening to the moist sounds of flesh being punctured again and again.
I unlimber my bow and say through gritted teeth, "Knew there was a snake in here." I am probably also taking a couple of slow steps away from that end of the barn.
I see whether the shadow reacts.
It does. We feel a strange kinship.
I resist the urge to take a step forward.
I'd like to fire a round into the shadow.
You shoot magic missile at the darkness?
Yes.
Jeez. Okay.
I mean, unless my knowledge of magic tells me that that's something that won't work.
Yeah. Go ahead. So you're gonna roll speed, I believe, for your gun.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and fire.
It's a 5.
Nothing so dramatic as the bullet stopping in midair and then dropping to the ground occurs, but it has the same feeling. You hear the bullet more than see it hit the back of the barn, and the munching continues undisturbed. But you realize that those horrible eyes that look like molten metal have pivoted in the darkness to gaze back at you, the dark slashes at their center narrowing as though you're the only thing in their sight now.
The darkness only has eyes for you.
I am probably going to refrain from saying something, but I am going to make an irritated hissing noise myself as I blink and shake my head from the bright flash and loud bang that just occurred.
Now, your ears are likely ringing,
Yeah.
but you hear a unmistakable prolonged squish of a big swallow,
Uh-huh.
and then something unexpected. A low, chittering sound that it takes you a moment to recognize as a laugh. The sound itself seems to surround you and squeeze.
Oh, good. If I can see the eyes from here, after all that, my reaction might be to loose an arrow at one of them.
You're welcome to roll speed.
All right. Let's see. Right. My bow is long range, does 40 damage. Okay, I'm not easing, but I'm also not hindered. So, I can apply effort to this as well, as like that works on attack rolls too. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I am gonna apply 1 level of effort, bringing my speed pool from 10 to 8, and attempt to, well, not bullseye so much as snake eye this thing with an arrow. If I hit it at all, then great. It doesn't have to literally go in the eye for me to be happy. Here goes. That is a 13.
The arrow flies straight for a time, but as it grows near to the eyes, they vanish and reappear almost impossibly fast to the opposite side of the barn, the far corner from where it was previously seen.
Mm-hmm.
And the chittering occurs again, that low, terrible laugh. And this time, it speaks.
Oh, good.
These are not of the blood we serve. They should make their request or intentions known with haste before their scent stirs our hunger, though only a few of them are fit for eating. You hear a low hiss.
Y'all heard that too?
Yes. I, in mechanical terms, use something I have called Hear Me Now. This is meant to project confidence, knowledge, charisma to an interlocutor. Now that I know there is an interlocutor here, this is supposed to be, it's supposed to make whoever I'm talking to think that I am a person worth talking to, of some importance. I concentrate myself on doing this, and I stand before the eyes, and then I open my mouth and let the shadow say what it will.
Oh,
The shadow
You are full of bad
Pores
decisions, Drew. I love
from your
this.
lips. And a voice that you've heard before but don't remember booms out. You lesser thing, dare speak to one of my servants. And the eyes retreat and then bow.
They have our attention.
I close my mouth and look around like, what happened?
You look around in that mannerism, you don't actually say it out loud. This is
Indeed,
actually
indeed.
important.
No,
okay.
exactly. No, I do not ask it. No, I let the words that were not my words be my words for the moment, and maybe do take a halting step backward, though I try to look confident as I do so.
Those terrible glowing eyes blink as you move, illuminating just enough to give the impression of the beast below stretching, a distended jaw clicking first to one side, then the other into place. They blink again and then reappear closer to you.
Well, I meant no offense, nor did I mean any offense. Lesser, I suppose, is always relative. None of us meant any offense at all. Perhaps we can talk this out.
What is it that they wish to speak with us about?
Well, there seems to be something of a pestilence. No, a presence descending, and we wish not to have the flesh stripped from our bones, nor the flesh stripped from the bones of those others in attendance. So we seek an abeyance of the happening.
We are not of her, though we feast and have feasted and will feast upon her once more.
That clears everything up. Thank you.
What the fuck?
I am sort of have been moving a little to the sides that I'm not like directly in front or I guess directly behind Cladwell, but I will sort of stage whisper Cassie in Cladwell's direction, since he seems to be the spokesperson here.
I don't break eye contact. I assume my eyes are very dark indeed right now, and I say, "Well, I suppose there's a more specific matter here. Young woman by the name of Cassie, woman being a thing roughly like ourselves, you see, but different in some ways that. Well, Cassie, have you seen anybody by the name of, if names are indeed something you might?"
I will interrupt to provide the description given me of Cassie.
I do not turn around, but I point where I think you are, as though to thank you for the assist.
The eyes blink again, and as usual, they reopen on the opposite side, clearly seeking to unsettle more than threaten. The voice, however, does not move, but continues to come out of the side closest to you, Fielding.
We do not concern ourselves with their names. We only feast on what they provide. The blood's mistake. One was not of the blood, but of that which we've slumbered beneath for so long.
I am restraining my impulse to fire another arrow at this thing because talking is better than getting eaten. But I am, I think, making the executive decision to let those who seem more conversant in this particular type of the unnatural take point.
I am currently fighting the urge to let the shadow talk again. So unaccustomed am I to that not immediately working. So if someone doesn't stop me, that's about to happen.
Yeah, well,
Out of character, I welcome that.
I sure do appreciate your being so forthcoming and all. I don't suppose you'd be willing to let us know who the blood you serve is.
They ask who the blood is, as if they have not partook of what the blood produces, have not inhaled it in their lungs, as though the taste of it is not still on their lips. It laughs at you again. If they wish to keep the blood safe, they will help us.
Well, I'm sure interested in what kind of help you're looking for. How could we help you help us help you?
There's a sound of the shadows shifting, and the creature doesn't so much as enter the light. Instead, it's almost like the dark constricts the light until it's diminished to a protective orb around your group. Amelia lets out a small squeal of fear as this happens, and you can see shapes writhing, pressing in against the light, like a current, like worms, like a mass of serpents. You have the sense that they should be making sound with all that movement, but if they are, it's nothing you can hear, and the silence is deafening. But you clearly have this thing's full interest and attention, and it responds to you. They must allow the blood's funny little ritual to finish. Then they must stop her and bring proof of it, all before nightfall. Then we will be at their service, as with the blood. We have much to offer those who wish to swallow life whole.
Yeah, well, that all sounds dandy, of course. Stopping the ritual and, whatnot.
So they erupt you with an angry hiss.
They said stop the ritual. We said it must complete.
Thank you for correction. I would have had egg on my face, let me tell you what. So keeping as congenial tone as possible, I will hold up kind of a warding hand towards Miss Amelia Blackwood, because I know that what I'm about to say is going to be pretty upsetting. But I continue to talk to the darkness, saying, is there anything else that we could do of service? For example, I don't know whether you feed on more than just goats, but there's several other servants that are easily led back at the estate there. Don't suppose that's the kind of thing that you're interested in eating, or have eaten?
My eyes flit to you in a perfect 50-50 mix of horror and admiration.
Amelia also blanches and looks at you with an expression of confusion laced with betrayal.
It may be involuntary, but I probably take at least a step in a direction that would put me between you and Amelia.
Our shoulders collide.
And BB and Fielding, you both in this proximity feel an almost dizzying amount of dark power. And that chittering sound that passes as its laugh fills the air again. And the serpents writhing in the shadows constrict further against the light, as though in a adjusting squeeze.
We are merely that which is within our nature, hungry.
Do they not eat to survive?
The blood woke us with their fire and prayers while we brumated beneath. The blood offered us their stock, and its pain and kind we gave the blood that which it hungers for: wealth, prosperity, fertile soils, and protection. A fair trade by the old compact, satiating for all. We have only eaten that which was offered to us, and will continue to eat that which is offered. We wonder if they wish to live a satiated life.
I will take that under advisement. Now, just to be clear, I'm not offering anyone that's here now. I was just wondering whether that's the kind of thing that you'd be interested in. So, put that back in the back of my noggin, and I will take it under advisement.
Now, this here ritual. What needs to complete? There was a bit of an interruption, as well you're aware, as well are we all.
She wishes to stop it while the sun is bright and we are weak. This ritual is merely the joining of the blood with the new blood.
When? Well, that's straightforward.
I will chime in at this point, kind of as an aside, addressing BB and Cladwell more than their interlocutor. Say, well, unless you got an efficient up your sleeve, it might be a little bit of a challenge. I kind of make a grimace face.
Which one's the new blood?
This is in character?
Mm-hmm.
They,
Realize I'm not talking like Silas, but
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
they who walk below would give us access to that which slumbers beneath and expand our influence.
The miners. I don't curse because Amelia is present.
I say, God damn.
If I'm close enough, I actually do give you like a little backhanded, like
I
on the elbow, and jerk my
I
head
will
toward
just
Amelia.
look at Fielding and say, yes.
Now, you mentioned also that there's someone trying to stop the ritual. Stop this glorious joining from happening. It could be that my companions have already pieced that together, but who might that be? I know names don't mean much to you, but any description that you'd have can get in the way of this person interrupting our plans?
She calls herself Mother. We cannot fight her ourselves because she is also an opponent. Her strength will wane if the ritual is complete. Then we will feast, and have feasted, upon her.
That does sound like a step up from a goat.
You hear a belch from somewhere in the shadows. And from above you, a bloody halter drops to the ground at your feet. Amelia lets out another shriek and then sets her jaw as though to shake off the fear and clenches her fists.
So this is an out-of-character question that may or may not have a satisfying answer, but as noted in my character focus, I serve the green. And as I noted last time, I held to the most restrictive possible interpretation of our pre-session instructions in doing my care gen, and did not read ahead to see what that entailed beyond the most broadly obvious. Would I have any insight as to, there's these different entities and powers and pacts? Would I have any insight into where they stand in relation to the green, or what the green's attitude towards any given party would be? Or is it just like totally disengaged, disinterested, or opaque to me?
I'm so glad you asked. And I'm not going to make you roll for it because at that moment it clicks. you were too taken aback previously by the strange voice booming
Mhm.
out of Fielding with authority that was clearly not his own. And you remember how it addressed the glowing red eyes, the massive serpents, this entity. It said it was a being of a lesser being. And it clicks in your mind in that moment that this is a lesser being of the inner dark.
Okay. Does that mean something to me as Ed that more specific than what it means to me as Adam?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Even though the inner dark and green are not always oppositionally positioned,
Mhm.
in this case to you, it's fairly clear that this is a conflict between the two.
Okay.
And that what this entity has managed to do is spread progress and wealth for the people
Mhm.
seeking to occupy this land.
Yeah, that tracks. So does that then lead my intuition in the direction that, as far as I can tell at least, does it seem to me then that the cicadas are a manifestation of like the will of the green?
I can only reiterate at this point what you've already
Mm-hmm.
witnessed, which is that the cicadas interrupted the wedding
Mm-hmm.
with particular, I guess, focus directed towards the ordained individual among the procession.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to hold us up too long asking background questions of like, well, what insight would my character have? But I do have one more step here. How well would I have known, how aware of his activities would I have been with respect to Atticus?
For all you know, he is an upstanding fellow.
Okay.
He's quick to provide food for the hungry. He was pretty frequently spotted out supporting the laborers in the field, ministering to expectant mothers. You heard nothing untoward about him.
Okay.
I love being seen with him for these reasons.
That tracks. I'm probably not going to say anything currently, but I'm glad I have a little bit more insight. Thank you for humoring me in this way. But for the moment, I think I am going to stay sort of below attention for the most part and let those who have a better idea of what we're dealing with continue to handle it.
Yeah, well, on that note, I sort of made an in-character decision that I was taken aback by the lowly status, or for the very least, the perceived lowly status of my shadow when it spoke. Did I understand what was happening there, or was this like brand new information to me?
So your shadow speaking.
Your shadow was the one declaring the other one to be a lesser creature.
Exactly.
I misunderstood that before, so thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, the creature you're currently dealing with is a lesser creature. Yours, the opposite.
Gotcha. So we can fiat that I was just being very gracious by talking about how lesser is relative.
But sort of ironical.
That is how I read it when you said it. So
let the record show that I'm smarter than I am. Okay. So I think at this point, I say, you know what? I do let the shadow speak again. Before I do that, I say, well, I think perhaps we can come to some sort of understanding here. Then it seems our interests are mutual. And it also seems that perhaps we got off on the wrong foot, and that's a solvable problem. And at this point, I allow the shadow to speak.
The shadow continues to berate this creature. It takes you aback, because it initially laughs and merely remarks, "You have bitten off more than you can chew this time, old Copperhead."
Is that the first time I've heard Old Copperhead?
Yes.
Okay.
And the entity immediately shrinks. And you notice that its confidence is shattered as it responds with, "We call ourselves the Swarm now."
It's not a phase.
This is this is giving like teenage emo kid.
A little bit.
Mhm.
This is who I am.
Oh god, now I'm imagining like a Spider-Man 3 kind of an emo haircut
Playing
for
the
the
piano.
Snisher.
You can't prove. We can't see this thing well enough to prove that that's not the case.
That's why the eyes are only sometimes visible.
Oh.
Okay, this is a horrifying eldritch entity.
Right.
Getting my head back in the game here.
A horrifying eldritch emo.
Yes.
Mhm.
I will admit that in character, my awe of it in the classical sense of the word has been diminished somewhat by its interactions with Cladwell's shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ed, are you looking at... How many of you are looking at Cladwell while he's speaking?
I'm probably mostly
I
looking
do.
at Cladwell during this interaction to avoid looking at the shadow thing.
He has an almost after image standing behind him. Something massive with antler-like horns.
Is it the same thing that I saw in his smoke?
Mm-hmm. The one and the same.
Is it the same thing that I saw on the cover of the source book?
Indeed.
Wow. Way to be
Wait,
direct,
how,
Nick.
how did BB get a hold of the source book?
I know. That
Oh
was
no,
Granny's
BB's
notebook
broke.
this whole time.
BB's broken the fourth wall.
It actually makes sense that Granny would have broken the fourth wall.
I mean, I think that Mima is indeed our agent of the green here.
I like the
But I do not say
idea of BB being our
Sure.
Deadpool.
For those of you unfamiliar with Old Gods of Appalachia, it's worth noting that the entity to which our players are referring is in-universe called the creature whose name sounds like Horned Head, but isn't.
All right.
Huh.
And yes, it's on the source book cover.
And it is worth Googling because it is just the most epic artwork in the universe.
Pretty rad.
Yeah, it's good as hell. Could I stop it from berating this other entity if I wanted to? Is that within my purview?
No.
Okay.
Certainly not. You could stop using the shadow to speak to it if you wish. You'll feel the slightest twinge of disappointment. But fortunately for you, it's not really in a position to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet.
I'm gonna say I don't actually. I'm when you're waiting for an awkward break in the or you're awkwardly waiting for a break in the conversation and it never quite comes. I let it go on a little longer than is probably seemly and perhaps more, definitely longer than is good for diplomacy before finally cutting the communique and feeling the aforementioned twinge of disappointment.
And as you do that, the chittering laugh emerges again. They cannot do anything to stop us. They are incomplete. It's not directed towards you. You have the sense that it's responding and musing almost about the nature of your shadow voice.
Well, everyone is incomplete individually, aren't they? I mean, it seems we serve the same power. It seems we have the same goals in mind. Let's achieve them, shall we?
The coils of shadow that were blocking the door to the barn lift.
I am already moving.
I'd like to offer a Columbo, just one more thing, if you would. It's great to hear that they can't stop us. That certainly adds a bit more weight in our corner, but just so that we're aware, if this ceremony is postponed somehow, will that throw a wrench in the equation?
The coil slams shut again. And with some impatience, the voice repeats, "They must help the ritual finish. They must stop her. Bring proof of it, all before nightfall."
All right, this is time sensitive. You did mention. Thank you so much. We'll be on our way. I wouldn't want to detain you any further.
When the coils of shadow raise this time, they envelop the exit a little bit more tightly, so that you have to turn sideways in order to squeeze out to avoid coming in contact. And the closer you get, the more you notice that it's almost like ashen material rising from it at first.
Like that same soot that the cicadas turned into?
The same.
I say, well, thank you, and apologies again if any portion of the interaction was a shade impolitic.
You get no response but a low hiss.
I have certainly not stopped attempting to leave the barn this entire time, so if I can be outside,
I
that's
am
great.
assisting Amelia the hell out of here.
Amelia's not far behind Ed. As soon as Ed starts moving, Amelia also moves, and I assume...
Yeah, no, I think that it is in close order, Ed, Amelia, me.
I have a practiced leisurely pace out. I'm not waving like the queen with a cupped hand, but, you know, that's the vibe as I walk my way out.
Christ, what an asshole.
BB, are you also out of the barn?
Yes, I will leave the barn as well. And, you know, as we're clear and dozens of paces away from the barn, you know, I'll just turn to Amelia and say, my deepest condolences. It sounds as though your friend is beyond our ability to save, but thankfully beyond anyone's ability to harm any further.
She lets out what at first you think is a sob. And then you realize that she's laughing. No, it didn't. Weren't you listening? It wants us to stop her. And that's where we'll end our session.
My. Before we end, I have one character arc question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
My character arc involves joining an organization. One of the steps in joining an organization is making a contact. Friends on the inside are always important, after all.
I know what your question is going to be, and yes, this is a step in that direction, and I will award you 2 experience points because you have stepped towards joining a pact.
Well, I accept them most graciously. I was going to say gracefully, but not that. Okay.
I mean, as we're speaking about character arcs, are these meant to be relatively frequent or infrequent? Like, would this step of uncovering more of a mystery be more XP, or would that be more than would usually be awarded or at a pace that would be toward?
I'll allow it. Just because this is a shorter session, and I think the experience points will only benefit you for what's to come ahead.
Makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Ooh. Yeah, that's actually my commentary on ending the episode is oof.
Thanks for listening, and remember, oof.
I just imagine us now going back to the wedding party saying, all right, we got good news and bad news.
Which
The
would
good
you like
news
first?
is that the cicadas that ate their way out of the preacher are the good guys.
And that concludes this session of Dice Punks. Thanks for joining us. I hope our players and listeners enjoyed it as much as I did, and that you'll all join us again next time. If you're hearing us now, then you probably know where to listen to this. But we can be found almost any place one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Tumblr and co-host as at dicepunks. With that, I think we're ready to say farewell. Say goodbye to the kind folks at home, players.
Well, make sure you budget enough time in your day to get your errands done before you lose the light.
Well, thanks for listening, and when you enter a negotiation, always be sure to know where you stand, and of course, where that thing is standing, whatever it is.
Thanks for listening, and if you have a key to open a door, you don't need a sledgehammer, but it's still handy.
Well, thank you for listening. And, just a piece of parting advice. Never judge someone before you walk a mile in their skin.
And as the poet once said, I held the power of a dying sun, climbed the altar, and I claim my place as God. Circle with me, circle with me. This could all be yours. Feel the weight of a martyr. It could all be yours. Beloved listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stick around through the admin stuff for Ed's Origins. The main theme for this one-shot, Older Than Bones, is by Robin Graves. It wouldn't have been possible, however, without Drew's kind use of his editing prowess and immense skills. You can find links to Drew's work in our show notes, and you can find Robin by whispering your deepest, darkest secrets to your local river. Editing and our campaign's rad new cover art was done by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet, where she goes by Anything Sews. Site design and graphics for dicepunks.com, including the cover art for this one-shot, are by Robin. The spider in the corner of your room is waiting to receive your review, though you may not yet see them. Old Gods of Appalachia, a role-playing game, is by Monty Cook, Bruce R. Cordell, and Sean K. Reynolds. You can learn more by visiting montycookgames.com. The Old Gods of Appalachia podcast is written by Cam Collins and Steve Shell and produced by Deep Nerd Media. Pay a visit to oldgodsofappalachia.com to join the family. Links to the system and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks again so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own. But if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available for backers, including a patron-only Discord and access to the Dice Peaks after show for episodes 1.1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
No, it used to be when my family came to the holler for the first time 10 years or so ago, folks would often ask me where we were from. I'd try to answer, tell them, but the words were unfamiliar, not from familiar language even, and they didn't know where it was, what it was like, anything about it. It's a meaningless answer to them. So I eventually just started saying I was from this here holler. And folks mostly accepted that, moved on. Stopped getting the question so much most of the time, except from newcomers or those that was too young to remember my family arriving. Nowadays, don't get the question so much. Usually just tell them I'm from the holler, or if they're familiar, I'm a little more specific. Tell them the valleys and dells that I hunt in and general location of my little cabin. Made it myself, so I'm as much from there as anywhere else. But none of those answers are the truth, really. I'm from where all of us are from. I'm from the dirt and the water. I'm from the green around us and the red within us. I'm from the rock below us and the sky above us. Much as anything, like anyone, I'm from my mama. My own, and all of ours. Maybe something to think about next time someone asks you where you're from.